Hello and very warm welcome to the Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following are the news headlines which have been reported by American, European, Canadian, Asian, African, and European news channels. So please let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air. The manhunt and new details about the suspect in that deadly shooting rampage in Montana. Former special counsel Jack Smith under federal investigation. And the roller coaster week for the U.S. economy, what it all means for consumers. First, the urgent statewide search. An Army veteran accused of killing 4 people at a Montana bar. Multiple law enforcement agencies searching by air and on the ground. Police calling the 45-year-old suspect, Michael Paul Brown, armed and dangerous. Authorities locating the 2007 white Ford pickup Brown was last seen in on Friday. The tiny community on edge as residents have been warned to stay on high alert. What we're learning tonight. Breaking news, former special counsel Jack Smith is now under a federal probe over his investigations into President Trump. The independent agency now looking into whether Smith violated a law that restricts federal employees from engaging in political activities. The new details just coming in. Also tonight, a wild week for the economy. Some major companies now planning to increase prices to offset tariff costs. What it could mean for back-to-school shoppers. This amid new signs of a weakening jobs market. Air quality alerts, the hazardous haze smothering parts of the Midwest, drifting down from Canadian wildfires, and the flash flooding risks in the southeast. Our weather team tracking it all. Ramped up security on the streets of Cincinnati after a video of a violent brawl sparks outrage. The new arrests and new images showing the moments before and after the chaos. Pope Leo thrilling hundreds of thousands of young people what some are calling the Catholic Woodstock Festival in Rome. It's the American Pontiff's first major encounter with the next generation of Catholics. The Field of Dreams at an iconic racetrack, MLB's Speedway Classic makes history. The Pro Football Hall of Fame welcomes a new class. And the DNA surprise, the rescue dog, and the biological twist one family never could have imagined.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
It's a great pleasure to have Ambassador Mike. Welcome back, America. It's a great pleasure to have Ambassador Mike Huckabee with us. Full disclosure, my stepson works with Mike, and Ambassador, he has nothing but praise for you. And I just want to say, President Trump, Secretary Rubio, and you are a fantastic triumvirate in a very difficult part of the world where our dear friends, the Israelis, are under a massive propaganda assault in addition to terrorist assault. Mr. Ambassador, I've never really seen anything like this where the Western countries are collapsing, in my view. They're buying into this propaganda. Of course, people are dying and they're hungry in Gaza, and one of the reasons I believe the United States and Israel wants to eliminate Hamas is so some peace and civility can be brought back to that area of the world. I'd like your thoughts about this and this whole idea of about a Palestinian state.
The insanity that we're dealing with right now is that there are so many European nations, so many Americans who are angry at Israel for the suffering in Gaza. Mark, there is one reason that there is suffering in Gaza. It's the same reason that 1,200 people were massacred on October the 7th. It's the same reason that 250 people were taken hostage. 50 of them continue to be held hostage and tortured. And that's because of Hamas. They're a terror organization, and they've acted like it. And all of this time, Israel has done everything it can. They've made I don't know how many different offers in order to get the hostages out to end this. Hamas always walks away, always says no. And for some crazy reason, the Europeans and people around the world are blaming Israel for this. I can't get my arms around what the rationale is, but it doesn't make any sense.
You think the media play a big role, the Western media, the American media? Because I'll tell you, Mr. Ambassador, I have report after report. It's available to the whole world by professors, by think tanks, by media organizations that are not part of the corporate media, explaining exactly what Hamas is doing to the food and the water and the medicine, how they're killing their own people. They're killing their own people the way Stalin killed his own people, the way Mao killed his own people, the way Assad killed his own people. They kill their own people to hold on to power. And yet the New York Times runs with a phony photograph that goes all over the world that I'm sure drives anti-Semitism. The European media pick it up. What do you make of the media, the Western media? Do they have a suicide pact with these people?
They're beyond corrupt. Mark, I've never seen anything like it. Look, the media's been bad for a long time, but they deserve our contempt. You mentioned that picture in the New York Times. This was a child who was, it's a pathetic picture. It's very sad, breaks your heart. But the truth is he had a birth defect. That's why he looked like he did. And the fact is the Israelis, the New York Times forgot to tell us this, they actually made it possible for this child.
On this Saturday night, more tension over tariffs on Canadian goods, leaving businesses in limbo on whether a deal will be reached. The latest on negotiations with no clear path forward.
Who's to say whether what is agreed now will be in agreement for the remainder of his term in office?
Trump orders 2 U.S. nuclear submarines to reposition after threats from a former Russian president. A BC woman regains her sight after a decade of blindness thanks to a procedure using one of her own teeth. And Toronto's Caribbean Carnival Parade takes over the streets. It's a celebration of our freedom. How thousands are celebrating freedom, culture, and heritage.
Global National reporting tonight.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The U.S. president's radical shift in trade policy is reverberating around the world and in the U.S. Canadian businesses are now subject to a 35% tariff on exports not covered in our free trade agreement. Many other nations have an extension until August 7th, but already the U.S. economy is showing signs of stress. Friday's jobs report was much weaker than expected, leading to Donald Trump's knee-jerk firing of the woman in charge of those stats. As Reggie Cicchini reports, politicians on both sides of the aisle think that was the wrong move.
Since the first hours of Donald Trump's second term, concerns from economists about the risks of widespread tariffs have grown into roars.
It's a completely ridiculous economic policy.
Even with some unexpectedly positive GDP figures this week, Friday's weak U.S. jobs numbers delivered a harsh dose of reality.
Why should anybody trust numbers?
The July report showed sharp declines and contained major revisions for May and June, suggesting everyday Americans may already be feeling tariff impacts. It wasn't what Trump wanted to hear, and his reaction was swift, firing the Labor Statistics Commissioner who publishes reports on job data and the economy, claiming without proof the report was
the largest in Arizona, spreading to more than tonight. Dangerous wildfires burning out of control out west. The largest in Arizona, spreading to more than 100,000 acres. Smoke billowing from the Grand Canyon. A Utah fire prompting a state of emergency. And this one in California exploding in size, forcing evacuations. Down south, flooding and millions under extreme heat alerts and a severe storm threat on the way tonight. The urgent police search underway in Montana. He's believed to be armed and extremely dangerous. Authorities warning people to be on the lookout if they leave their homes while they try to track down this man wanted in a deadly mass shooting. A suspect accused of threatening lawmakers. Police make a shocking discovery as they move in to make an arrest. Inside the home, 14 explosive devices. Nationwide protests against the Trump administration as federal officials open a new investigation into the special counsel who charged President Trump. The event that has 1 million young people turning out to hear Pope Leo. We're live from Rome. Caught on camera, burglars making a bold daytime robbery. What police are learning from this video and the new warning for homeowners tonight. Katie Ledecky making history once again in the pool. They look like humans and they could be the workers of the future. Why humanoid robots are on the rise across the country. And there's good news tonight about a hero who came to the rescue and the bond these moms will share forever.
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz Millard.
Good evening. We begin Dane's
Tonight, defending his decision.
I don't believe those numbers. I think because we're doing so well, and we fired her.
The president doubling down on what he calls manipulated numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics after a dismal jobs report, and the tariff turmoil piling on, adding up to a market sell-off.
I'm Willie James, and in traveling with the president, the administration's policies putting a spotlight on the state of the U.S. economy.
Also tonight, immigration ruling. Emily's Preston in Los Angeles on the court ruling restricting roving patrols by federal agents in Southern California. Air quality alerts, the warning to more than 36 million Americans about unhealthy air due to wildfires. Making a splash, Katie Ledecky does it again, setting a new personal best, one for the record books. And later, Deadheads Unite. San Francisco welcomes thousands of fans to mark a milestone and the new images of the band that will leave them grateful.
I like to call the book a love letter to San Francisco, Jim Marshall, and the Grateful Dead.
This is the CBS Weekend News from New York with Jerika Duncan.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you.
Government unveils a new fast-track asylum system.
With plans to clear the years-long backlog of appeals launched by failed migrants.
Will it lead to more
children will be to Britain in order to receive emergency medical care.
Record number of people over 60 are referred to the government's anti-terrorism programme for holding what are being called extreme right-wing views. We'll debate whether being anti-immigration really amounts to a hate crime.
And a new rule lifts the trial of Prince Andrew's fall from grace. We'll find out which royal the Duke is alleged with. Allegedly.
Good morning. The Wallaby whitewash turned into a washout as severe rainstorms in Sydney disrupted the British Airways bid for a clean sweep of victories over Australia. And in F1, Lewis Hamilton calls his Hungarian Grand Prix qualifying performance just useless.
Storm flourishes on the way as we go into Monday. Find out just how strong the winds will be where you are in your full forecast coming up.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's 6 o'clock. Coming up on the show today, we're talking about the search for Britain's most wanted man 20 years after he went on the run.
And in sport, England is chasing a huge 374 runs in the decisive fifth test against India.
It's Sunday, the 3rd of August. A new key for information on the 20th anniversary of the murder of Lucy Hargreaves, killed in her own home, with the suspect still at large. New plans to deal with illegal migrants, with a shake-up of the asylum system and a crackdown on social media sites promoting channel crossings. NHS England claims the recent doctors' strike was less effective, with more patients treated and fewer doctors walking out. An overnight attack in Gaza kills a member of the Palestinian Red Crescent. And seeing dad in prison, a family visiting scheme which could stop prisoners reoffending.
And new Rangers manager Russell Martin blasted his players after their opening day of the season, ending with a draw at Motherwell.
Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us here on The Breakfast Show. Our top story today,
Good morning, I'm Oliver Ferry and this is Daybreak. 1 in 4 children under the age of 5 in Gaza face acute malnutrition, according to Médecins Sans Frontières, as the enclave edges towards famine. NGOs reiterate their call for Israel to allow aid into Gaza in sufficient quantities to alleviate the widespread hunger. Ukrainian authorities arrest several politicians in a major anti-corruption sting. The case centres on graft in drone procurement for Ukraine's National Guard. It follows a U-turn by President Volodymyr Zelensky and the restoration of the anti-corruption watchdog's independence. The EU's landmark AI Act comes partly into force, the first large-scale regulation of artificial intelligence, with the aim of ensuring providers are transparent about their models and also to ensure that authors of copyright material are compensated.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff has met with the families of Israeli hostages still being held in Gaza. Witkoff reportedly assured them that Washington's first priority is to get the captives back. Demonstrators demanded their return with new urgency after militants released a propaganda video showing emaciated hostages. There's been no comment from Russia's foreign ministry after the announcement by US President Donald Trump that he's ordering 2 nuclear submarines to be repositioned closer to Russia. Trump's redeployment order comes as the clock is ticking on a White House deadline for Moscow to halt its war in Ukraine. Scientists say that glaciers in Switzerland are melting at an alarming pace. Researchers say winter snow cover, which used to last until September, is melting earlier each year, exposing the ice underneath. A monitoring network says Swiss glacier volume is barely over half what it was in 1950. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find much more on our website at dw.com.
At 6 a.m. on ABC TV and ABC iView. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters rally in Sydney and Melbourne as global pressure builds over the mounting toll in Gaza. The search continues for a woman who went missing in floodwaters in the New South Wales Hunter Valley as severe weather hits the state. Unions call for a rethink on negative gearing and capital gains ahead of a major productivity summit. And a fairy tale finish for the Melbourne Vixens, defeating West Coast by 1 point in the Super Netball Grand Final. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Jen Robinson. Huge pro-Palestinian rallies are taking place in both Sydney and Melbourne this afternoon, calling for action on Gaza. In Sydney, tens of thousands of people are right now marching over the Harbour Bridge after the New South Wales Supreme Court refused the Police Commissioner's application for a prohibition order on the event. We'll hear from reporter Nabil Al-Nashar shortly. Hello, I'm Yasmin Yonkers with your headlines this hour. India will reportedly continue buying oil from Russia, defying US President Donald Trump's threat to impose penalties if it continues doing so. And this summit reports that trade talks have stalled between the two powers after the White House imposed 25% duties on Indian imports. Protests in Thailand calling for suspended Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra to quit over her handling of the border dispute with Cambodia as tensions between the two neighbors continue to simmer over the treatment of soldiers detained. And Hamas says it won't disarm unless an independent Palestinian state is first established. The hunger crisis worsens in Gaza with more deaths reported from starvation and more killed trying to get aid at distribution points. And those are the latest headlines from the CNN newsroom.
This is Asia Now.
Good afternoon. It is 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 a.m. in New Delhi. Clock in Jakarta. I'm Yasmin Yonkers at this hour. India will reportedly continue buying oil from Russia, defying U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to impose penalties if it continues doing so. And this is amid reports that trade talks have stalled between the two powers after the White House imposed 25% duties on Indian imports. Protests in Thailand calling for suspended Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra to quit over her handling of the border dispute with Cambodia. Tensions between the two neighbors continue to simmer over the treatment of soldiers detained. And Hamas says it won't disarm unless an independent Palestinian state is first established. The hunger crisis worsens in Gaza with more deaths reported from starvation and more killed trying to get aid at distribution points. Tonight on PBS News Weekend, a flurry of new tariffs tariffs imposed this week by President Trump shook markets, along with weaker than expected jobs numbers that caused a key Labor Department figure her job. Then we explore the phenomenon of super aging and the scientific advances that may help transform human lifespans. And how a group of kids in Indiana are using their summer vacation to inspire others to get off their screens and get outdoors.
I'm Michael. I'm Lou. I'm Sam. I'm Jack. I'm Dick. I'm Miguel. And I'm Ricky. And we're the Creek Crawlers. This is day 25. We're trying to get to 1 million followers by the end of the summer. And today we're going to upgrade the fort and also swim and play games in the creek.
African News. The news.
South African police said Friday it had arrested some 1,000 illegal miners in an operation that lasted several days. A statement by the police said most of the suspects are foreigners without documents to support their stay in the country. It said their nationalities had not yet been established. They were arrested at a mine in Barberton in the Mpumalanga province, the statement said. In recent months, South Africa has intensified operations against illegal mining and mines. In January, nearly 2,000 illegal miners were arrested at an old gold mine in Stilfontein. Of these, 1,128 were from Mozambique, 473 from Zimbabwe, and 197 from Lesotho. In the same operation, at least 78 people died after authorities blocked supplies from reaching the underground mine. The South African government was accused by activists and rights groups of using starvation to push the miners out of the pits where they had barricaded themselves. João Lourenço avoided the subject of fuel price hikes as he addressed the country for the first time since the outbreak of deadly unrest. He blamed the violence on irresponsible citizens manipulated by unpatriotic organizations without elaborating. At least 30 people were killed as security forces confronted demonstrators protesting high prices, prompted by an increase in fuel prices since July 1st. The president defended the conduct of the police, saying it was necessary to restore order. Several human rights groups have accused the security forces of high-handedness, blaming them for the killing of defenseless people trying to express themselves. The country's interior minister said police acted to stop widespread looting and vandalism. The president said support measures will be taken to help businesses affected by the violence. As of Saturday, relative calm had returned to Rwanda, the capital, with public transport operating and businesses reopening. Angola is one of Africa's leading oil producers. Seeking even more glory, wrestler Ashraf Mahmoud is used to lifting heavy but went several notches higher Friday when he pulled 20 cars during an attempt to create a new Guinness World Record for most cars pulled by an individual. He's sending photos and videos to Guinness to have his bid evaluated. Thanks to God, today I pulled 20 private cars weighing between 1,200 kilos to 1,650 kilos. I'm doing this attempt to break the world record held by Kevin Fast from Canada, who pulled 15 cars weighing between 850 to 900 kilos. Thanks to God, I pulled 20 cars weighing more than 1,200 kilograms each. In March this year, Mahrous received formal recognition by the Guinness World Records in 3 categories, including the heaviest rail pull using only his teeth. He's planning to break a new world record of the heaviest ship pulled by teeth this month in the Red Sea resort of Hurghada.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Have a good life. Bye-bye.